Heart of Business podcast, sponsored by International Facilitators Organization, IFO. I'm your host, Mo Fatalbab, and today our guest is none other than Guy Spier, founder and CEO of Aquamarine. I met Guy back early on, I'm guessing 20 years ago, when he joined EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and then our paths crossed again through YPO. And then again, I did a training where his wife, Lori, was a participant. And so I feel like I've gotten to know the family for decades now, and it's just an honor and a privilege to be here with Guy. Before we dig in, our intention here is to do a four-part podcast, and that may be four podcasts, but we might just flow into a couple of the topics and do another recording or two. We'll see how it goes, because both Guy and I have done a lot of this, and we were just talking before the recording about how, what is unplanned is often where the magic happens. So with that, Guy, it's really great to be with you. The first episode here is your origin story. The second is your entrepreneurial story and your EO and YPO journey. The third is we want to talk about how your outlook has changed since your recent diagnosis, and obviously a lot of people feel for you and are thinking about you, and I'm one of those people. And the last is more about your message to the world about world peace. We're in a precarious time, and certainly I know you and I have been touched by that, and I'd just be curious to dig into that with you a little more. So here we are. Let's get started. Guy, welcome. Great to see you.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing better for seeing you. This is the first time I've talked to Mo in 20 years. We've had email exchanges. And of course, I read your book that came out probably about 10 years ago now, which I loved. And you need to know that Mo, from my perspective, has not changed one bit since I saw him 20 years ago. But when I was just saying off before we started that at the time, Mo seemed so much more experienced than I was, because he knew so much about how to like the training that we did together. And now I realize we're like the same age. But at the time, you felt like you were like sort of a generation older in wisdom, at least. So, but it's great to see you, and I'm so pleased. And the way this happened is that Mo, out of the blue, sent me a message saying, "Hey, I just want to know that that I'm thinking of you." It was simple as that, I think. And I, which I've been doing a lot of recently, I recorded a message back, which was, I thought, better, because you don't have to say much to touch somebody. And Mo, your words touched me because I knew that they were from the heart. And so I wanted to do more than just say thank you very much or send some email back. So I kind of, and then this happened. So I'm doing. I'm glad to be alive, and you'll find out more.
I'm glad that you're alive.
Yeah, and yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of things I wish I didn't know, which are true about life. But when you're innocent, you want the experience, and when you're experienced, you yearn the innocence. You yearn for the innocence. So, I'm experienced about the ways of disease, and I wish I wasn't. I wish I was innocent.
Yeah, so, I wish you were innocent in that regard as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, first of all, and thank you for that video. It really touched me. One of the things you said in the video is just how that actual training touched you, but I want to get into the next couple of episodes. This episode, I want to focus on Guy and who Guy is, and so I want to start with the story of origin. Where were you born, and what was it like in terms of the ecosystem around you? Was entrepreneurship there from the early beginnings, or is it something that sprouted out later on in life?
Yeah. Wow. So you're doing a lifeline with me, basically. But,
you could say that.
And so, where do I? So first of all, I would say that I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur. I don't think. I mean, I think that maybe you can say that entrepreneurs are of many types, but I think that I was not. I was nearly going to go into academia, and I think I would have had a very nice time in academia. I would have had a different life, but that's not where I started. And in my case, my father is and was an entrepreneur. He started a business. He was, first of all, he was working in agricultural chemicals marketing in the Middle East, actually. And then he started his own business in London. And quickly for me, I was smart and I went to good universities and I was, but then I went into strategy consulting and then I went to business school and some reason or another I discovered Warren Buffett and I realized that I wanted to become an investor. And my first investor was my father. And I don't know if so. You can say that even though I wasn't in his business, I'm a kind of a second generation, if you like. And if I had not had that kind of anchor investor from my father, I'm not sure that I would have been able to do it on my own. And I think that it takes some very special skills and risk-taking skills that I didn't have, or the willingness to take risk that I didn't have. So I'm not sure that maybe nobody's an entrepreneur in the classic sense of the word or whatever you think of entrepreneurship. But then, just a little bit about my background. I was born in South Africa, in the same city that Mahatma Gandhi was thrown off the train, to a South African mother and an Israeli father. And with 3 months old, we moved to Israel. We lived in Israel for 4 years, and then we moved to Iran for 7 years. And then in 1977, we moved to the UK, which is why I have an English accent. And we moved to Richmond in the UK. And then I had my undergraduate degree in the UK, and I worked in consulting, and then I did my MBA in the United States, and I did an investment banking for a couple of years. I hated investment banking and discovered Warren Buffett. And I was looking for a job as an analyst in value investing shops. And at that time, my father said, I've made a bit of money and I hate the way that they are running it for me. Maybe you can try and run it for me. Maybe you'll do a better job. And so that's like a short story of how I got to what I've done for the last, it's almost 30 years now. So it's a long time. And I was going to give you one other thing before I handed the mic back to you, but I've forgotten what it was. So I'll hand you back the mic anyway.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So in essence, your father's investment that you managed was your seed capital to
Correct.
start Aquamarine.
Correct. And as you know well, mainly in YPO, but maybe in EO as well. I mean, I was going to say something about EO that I really miss actually is that, and for a while we were members of both here, but there's just a certain amount that we can do in life. And when you realize that for 3 or 4 years you haven't shown up to any meeting, maybe it's time to, but the people who tend to be members of EO are on the bleeding edge, and they know what it's like to suffer, if you like, because most of the entrepreneurs in EO have suffered. Whereas in YPO, that you get people who are family business, you get people who are entrepreneurs in their own right, and you also get people who are just CEOs of organizations, but they're not their organization. So in a way, EO is a stronger sense of entrepreneurship because they really are many people in EO are on the bleeding edge, and but I think that what I wanted to say was that if it had not, I'm really kind of like a second generation is maybe a better way to describe me, between the founders, entrepreneurs, the second generation or family business, and CEOs of organizations that are not theirs. I think I fall more into that middle category that I just described, I think.
Mm, mm.
So,
And you mentioned suffering,
yeah.
almost as a good thing, and I believe that's how you meant it. Can you speak to that a little more and the importance of suffering in
Yeah.
this journey?
Do I have to? It's funny that you said that. So, you know, uh, the subtitle of my book is My Quest for Wealth, Wisdom, and Enlightenment.
Mm,
And there's a book that uh, was written by William Green that was called Richer, Wiser, Happier. And happier seems to be a very good outcome in life.
yeah.
And it's only recently that I discovered that maybe there's a better way of thinking about it, which is not, you don't want to optimize for happiness, because happiness is something that comes and goes. And you have so little control over it, would like to get control over it. But actually, there's so little control that we can have over happiness. What really has stuck with me recently is this idea, and it comes from Jordan Peterson, which is everybody suffers in life, and the only difference is how much meaning you can attach to that suffering. If
Mm,
you can make your suffering worthwhile because it has meaning, then you'll live a rich and beautiful and maybe happy life. But if you don't expect to have suffering and find a way to attach meaning to that suffering, you're less likely, and you're less likely to be happy, because
mm,
happiness really is like the weather; it comes and goes, if you like. So, but it's a strange thing, because whether it's the suffering that I mean, so in EO where I met you, and being in a forum as part of EO, the best presentations were when somebody had a business crisis or a personal crisis, and you trained us, and we learned to really come with open hearts as to
mm,
what was going on.
mm,
And yeah, actually, I think about it. There's a lot of meaning in those meetings, in those forum meetings, in the suffering, because so something that I've come to recently is to so sometimes we can't solve our problems. There's some medical problems as I've discovered, which are unsolvable, but we can talk about our problems. And in a way, you're an expert at teaching people how to talk about their problems in the right way. And I was talking about this very recently to my wife, Laurie, whom you've trained. Yeah, I'll tell you the circumstances. They've come to my memory. So,
mm,
what is beautiful about that way of talking about things is that the person who's got the problem, and we're talking, I mean, so I'll give the example is this is outside of a forum, but and just so you know, so because I don't want to get to it. I mean, we can dive deep in another session, but I was recently just diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a grade 4 tumor, which is incurable. The therapies that work in some cases didn't work in my case. And so I've recently shut down my fund. I'm very, very lucky. I can still come to the office every day. I made enough money that I'm not wanting for money, but I no longer have a business to run. I'm kind of like retired, and I'm trying to make the most of every day, because I don't know how long I've got left, if you like. If I'm very, very lucky, I will live a long time, but the outlook does not look good for people with my disease. And so then, a friend, actually, he's our lawyer. He discovers that a friend in the Netherlands has got the same disease, and so we set up a call to help them to talk about it. And it was it's about a year. I've been going through this the new phase of my life for a year and a half, and they had just gotten the news, and they just had their first cradiotomy, and so we were very, very helpful to them. We were able to show them on a Zoom call where what the pitfalls are, what you need to be worried about, what you want to ask the doctors. But it was healing for us, my wife and me. And it's something that you know very well, which is that when you talk about your problems in the right way, and as you know, and you don't give advice, you share experiences, it's not only healing for the person who's going through the crisis, it helps all the people around as well. So it's a very beautiful thing. And that happened in real life recently. And why did I bring it up? Because I've suffered more in the last year than I have my whole life, but no question about it. But that call with those two people in the Netherlands, actually it was the husband, the wife, and one of the daughters. It's so interesting because suffering is never sweet, that's for sure, but it made it less bitter. And Laurie is much better at this than I am, because I was kind of like a hard challenging MBA. I'm going to conquer the world, and having cancer when I'm 60 is not part of the program. It's not part of conquering the world at all. And so, but there was kind of like a shift in me as a result of that conversation, which made me feel better. And we didn't provide any help to them any real way, but somehow for them just to know that that we're going through something similar to what they're going through made them feel better for sure. And it made us feel better. I don't know why I'm going there. I'll hand the mic back to you and see where you go next.
Well, listen, what I really am loving in this is back to what you said a couple of minutes ago, having to do with meaning. I think, in addition to helping someone, in addition to getting the opportunity to get it off your chest, in addition to just having that incredibly difficult conversation, I'm sure, there's also meaning. And it reminds me of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And I know you've read it, and I know that, in the midst of the most difficult of circumstances, if we could find meaning, it makes those circumstances much more
Easier.
easier.
And I think that, in my case, if I trace my recent life journey, I mean, so when I think of, I actually just left. I'm still in a forum which is not EO or YPO, but I was part of an international forum that I left recently because they really couldn't help me much with the experiences that I was going through. It's just so out there in terms of what people normally go through. But also the forum, most people were actually there. They were still in a mode of, I'm in it to make as much money as I can. And that is the yardstick, if you like. And when you have a crisis like what I've just had, and I don't care how much money you have, the yardstick of I'm in here to make money is kind of ridiculous, because you realize that no amount of money, and you would give it all away in a heartbeat to have your health. And so the difficulty about finding meaning, and I'm now much better at it, is that you have to give up the whole worldview that you had. And the whole worldview is different. And there's a beautiful idea that that I heard from Douglas Murray, which is when sometimes there's a flare that goes up and you see where people stand. And many people stick to this idea of, well, yeah, I'm still in it for the money. But suddenly I'm not. And it took me not that much time to change my worldview, because if I didn't have changed my worldview, then I would be living a meaningless life, if you like. So I had to change. And the people that I've been able to keep as friends are either they're already enlightened in that way, or they learn through me that, because they're close friends, that going after the most amount of money is utterly ridiculous. Look at what Guy's going through. There's no point. So, but I think that my point to you is that the the transition to, yes, Viktor Frankl, you can suffer anything if you have the right meaning attached to it. But that transition did not come easily for me, because I didn't want to give up my old persona. I liked my old persona very much. It was a great persona. I was a very successful guy living in Zurich. My office, you're asking earlier on, is about a 15-minute walk from here, 12 minutes on the tram, beautiful Lake Zurich, going swimming every day in the summertime, going skiing in the wintertime. I had a perfect life. And, three healthy children, a wife who loves me. And then suddenly, I have to change my perspective. So,
So, first of all, I just want to tell you that I love Switzerland and Zurich. I had the fortune to do the Ironman in Lake Zurich, and
congratulations.
throughout the city, and then we've skied many times in Zermatt, and I've one of my best friends from high school and college is living in Zurich. So
Wow.
it's a great place, and what a great life. I absolutely can see a beautiful picture of everything you've just described.
Yeah.
I'm curious, before your diagnosis, was there
Yeah.
a moment where you started to wonder whether chasing money is still the right approach, or had you always been on the course until your
I mean,
diagnosis?
so I know that part of my, or a big, perhaps all, or a big part of my move from New York to Zurich was to say I want out of the rat race.
Mm,
And I didn't want to be, I was comparing myself to Bill Ackman, and I had an apartment, but it didn't have a view over Central Park, and I didn't think it was worth paying the extra money to keep a garage space on the ground floor of the garage. So it took 20 minutes more for me to get my car in comparison to, but other than a few things like that, and the sum of money that I was managing,
yeah.
we're really, we led very similar lives. And so I wanted to get out of that rat race, and I moved to Zurich to do that. And, as you know, Zurich offers its gifts to everyone, because we can all take the tram, we can all swim in the lake. There are beautiful parks. You don't need a garden. The swimming pools are fantastic. Everybody can travel to the ski resort. The air is free. We can go on and on.
Mm,
But some part of me was still wanted to win on my terms, and the winning, the best way to describe it was, the best shorthand was, well, how are you doing financially? And we're talking beyond, putting your children into private school and having a nice home and having nice holidays. So it's not like the material parts of my life are any different. But even in Zurich, and I think that in Zurich there are different cities, or in Switzerland. So, for example, Basel, which I don't know that well, is less glitzy banker than
mm,
Zurich. Zurich is still pretty glitzy banker, whatever. But there was a moment about 5 or 10 years ago, I think perhaps 5 years ago, when I said, why am I doing this actually? I could retire, or I could, and there are people in my business who do retire.
mm,
And they say, I have enough. I'm not trying to become the richest man in the world. So I started thinking about it 5 years ago, but I wasn't actually willing to make the steps to do it.
mm, mm,
And And there's one interpretation of what's happened to me in the last year, which is that God was saying to me, listen, asshole, I'm gonna make you give up the financial side of things, because if you don't do it the easy way, I'll do it but the hard way by giving you some awful disease, something like that. And so some part of me wants to say, God, I've learned my lesson. Be like Job in the Bible. Please, could you now just take it away? That would be very, very nice. But uh, but yeah, so I did think about it, but I didn't act on it. I acted on it in the margin. So I was less interested in getting new investors. I made it more difficult for new investors to on board with me because I changed the terms such that they needed to invest with the lockups were longer, and I started doing a history degree actually just for fun, and I was I'd started attending the TED conference, and I joined something called World Minds, and so I was doing a lot of other stuff, but my primary interest was still growing capital. And so and now I realize, I mean, the perspective is, and I don't know if I said this to you on the messages that I sent, but for me it's so, whether you're going to die tomorrow or in 50 years, we're all going to die, and it's all going to we're not going to like it when it happens. And so all we can do is score points against the Grim Reaper. But the Grim Reaper still wins. At the end of the day, he wins. So, what points did I score today? What points did I score yesterday? What points am I planning to score? Because if you're not scoring points on a daily basis, that is probably not an optimized life.
So
And
I love this notion. Give us a sense of some of the points you've scored in the last week or so.
um, yeah. So points I've scored in the last week. I mean, I've made it. I love reading. I'm a curious guy, and so I read multiple books at the same time. But I've got a program of reading the classics that I haven't yet read. So I was reading Don Quixote, but I got halfway through, and then I decided I wanted to take a break. And my daughter is studying Russian at Columbia University, and I don't know why it happened, but I knew nothing about Stalin. So I started reading. I think I know it's a home. I started reading the Kotkin version of Stalin, which is 2 big volumes, and that wasn't doing it for me. So I then started reading the Simon Sebag Montefiore version of Stalin. It's like a kind of like a period of his life, and that's just been just fascinating. So in amongst I'm also reading in my spare time. So now I'm reading the A People's Tragedy as well. That's kind of maybe next. I've started that, which is another history of the Russian Revolution. I realized I knew nothing about the Russian Revolution, and I wanted to know something. And at some point, I've got to get back to Don Quixote. I don't know when I'm going to do that, because I want to finish that. I'm literally halfway through. I've finished part 1, and I have a whole list of other books. So I'm scoring points every time I read, for sure. I've also, recently I've had a lot of fun doing those videos. You got one,
Yeah.
because there's something personal about it, and I can tell you something else.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, think about this. So I've had a lot of people like you did reach out to me, and if I don't know them, it's fine. But if I know them, like you, and we've had a connection, I don't want to just send. I mean, my assistant can send an email out, and that's okay, but it's not fine for somebody. And I realize that there are some people who are reaching out that I may never see them again. And that this may be the last message that I ever send to them. And so I want to leave them with a good taste in their mouth. I mean, obviously, hopefully I did that anyway, but I want them to do more than that. I want to do more than that. I want to say, you're okay. And I appreciate you reaching out. And here are some memories that I have of you. I mean, I hope to see them again as well, but you don't know if you will or not. And there's one case of a friend in New York City who, it's he doesn't perhaps know it, but it's the sweetest message I received, because we'd had a falling out, and it was over something actually that happened in a forum where he left the forum, and and I don't know whether I was at fault or not, but he felt like I was at fault, and it turns out he read my letter online, and he reached out to me, and first of all he said, I'm so sorry to hear about your diagnosis. For your interest, I've been dealing with prostate cancer, and for a minute there I thought that I had a very short lifespan. It looks like I'm okay right now. Please, if there's ever something that I can do, we connected to a bunch of doctors, a bunch of scientific medical research places. Feel free to use me as your connector. But what it really did for me was it said, Guy, if I never see you again, I've forgiven you and I don't feel badly about what happened in the past. We're okay. And it made me feel, I was so happy about that. And so I want to give that same feeling especially the people who've reached out to me in one way or another. And there's some people, I wrote a mess, I recorded a video for somebody that I have not seen since business school. And I knew her in my first year. I didn't know her much in my second year. And she taught me stuff, and we had a nice connection. And I just wanted to honor that, if you like. So in a way, maybe, this is scary, even after what I've been through, to say, God is giving me the opportunity to say goodbye in a nice way to all the people that I've known in my life. And, I'm 60. Even if I didn't have a foreshortened life as a result of my brain tumor, how many people will we never see again? And do we want to leave it on the note that we've got it on, or do we want to reach out and just like say, either I apologize, or you're okay, or I really appreciate the times that I've spent with you in the past. And I realized, in a way, I'm learning. I think that is Montaigne, and I haven't read maybe none of his essays, maybe one, and he's the great essay writer. But he said something like to learn to live is to learn to die. Something like that. And so so I need to read Montaigne's essays, but I'm nowhere close to reading that. So, and then back to your question, where have I won points in life recently? So for me, being in nature, ideally running, swimming, cycling, hiking, for me is just, and I enjoy it even more now than I ever enjoyed it in the past. So there's a video that I can send you that I recorded for friends. I did 10 kilometers on a bike. Normally, when I do a bike ride, average 30, 50 is a good ride. A really big day is 100. But I'm glad to just be on a bike, And I'm sitting I did 10K. I sat halfway through, and we know we've all seen this. There's long grass, and the wind is blowing across the grass. And you just see the sounds of the wind and the long grass. And what more is there to life than that? That's it. That is life. That is life running through our fingers, basically. And I notice that now, and I'm hugely aware of it, and I wasn't before. So
So I'm struck by the sweetness of the moment. You know, you use the word specifically as it relates to your former forum mate from New York and how sweet a message he sent you. Um, and what I'm really hearing from you loud and clear is this is an opportunity to be sweet with all the people that mattered and all the people that you've loved, and even be sweet with yourself and enjoy the simple things that we often take for granted. Um, I wonder what's the juxtaposition for you in a sense of the reality of your physical condition and the sweetness that you're experiencing in this moment.
yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind as you say that is, and I mean it the way I'm going to say it is like, fuck the sweetness. Can I just be self-centered the way I was before? That would be just fine. Thank you very much. All of this enlightenment bullshit, you know, fuck that, and just
Give me
give
my
me the
life
way I
back.
was, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I'd rather be innocent than experienced in what I have. But so that just goes without saying. And I think that I gave a talk on my own conference in Klosters called Value X, and uh, yeah, I've lost my train of thought, but it's going to come back. I think
The
it's going to come
sweetness
back.
versus the harsh reality is the question, so to speak.
I said to them, look, because you're a witness to what I'm going through, and I'm willing to be open about it, you should take that as a lesson for you, because you can in a way savor the sweetness of your own lives and your own moments without the decree of cancer. So use this, if you like, use this because it's a moment for you as well, if you like. um I think that, I mean, maybe this is the relevant thing to say is, for the first month and a half after my diagnosis, and we're talking about 2 months actually, December 2024 and January 2025, I was more depressed than I'd ever been in my life, and for good reason. I mean, I had a good reason to be depressed, and I had all the support in the world. First of all, I have an amazing wife, as you know, and she has a wonderful therapist. Her name is Eileen, by the way. We have multiple therapists in our lives,
Mm.
and Eileen said they have names. I've never met Eileen, but I know and the therapist that I had for 10 years in New York is called Soren, by the way. And so they come into our conversations. That's in addition to all the forum stuff.
Mm.
And she says, Eileen says to Laurie, she reports to me afterwards, she says, is Guy spiritual? And Laurie says, not really. Or she says, I don't know. And Eileen says to Laurie, well, we're about to find out how
Mm.
spiritual Guy
Mm.
is. And
Mm.
but you were asking a question, and I wanted to go there, and then I did that sideline, which was an illustration of something I was going to talk about.
Well, let's continue with this thread for a second. So, have you become more spiritual? Have you found a spiritual side that you hadn't found before?
I'm not going to answer that, but I'm reminded of what I was
Okay.
going to, which is this. So I got very depressed.
Mm.
That was Eileen, my wife's therapist. I was seeing a cancer oncologist, no, a psycho-oncologist, which is
Mm.
somebody who specializes in psychotherapy for cancer patients.
Mm.
And there's just, I mean, so uh, the I've done the tour of, I don't know if I've done the tour of all the dark places, but I've done a tour of many dark places.
Mm.
And there's a lot of dark places out there.
Mm.
And what I've learned is that there is no point there's just no point exploring them because there's nothing there. It's just void and blackness. And if you focus on it, you will find nothing and you'll just go deeper and deeper into the void. And so my circumstances are more limited than they were. I'm not very good in bright light, for example. I get tired very easily. I sleep 12 hours a night. I'm afraid to go in the water because I might have a seizure. I'm not allowed to drive anymore. I mean, there are many, many sort of limitations on my life, and I could get all upset about it, or I could just turn to what I can do. And so now I'm getting far better at when I see myself going into a hole, I just turn to the positive. So is that spiritual? And this is from a talk that the same talk that I gave in Clusters and Value X. The traditions that I know the best are the Jewish and the Christian tradition. Songs of praise. We hang out and we praise God in the church. If you go to a marriage, you don't even have to be Christian. You sing songs of praise in 1,000 different ways. You sing Hallelujah. Hallelujah is a song by Leonard Cohen, and what is Hallelujah is praise the Lord. And even in the Jewish tradition, what do you say? You say in Aramaic when somebody dies. You say, "Magnified and glorified be His name." It's in Hebrew, it's Itkadal Itkadash. And you say it in any prayer service. You say it at least 5 or 6 times. And so I have an interpretation of that now. I've only learned this now, which is why so much praising of God? Don't you have something better to do in the synagogue or the church or wherever else? And so the way I see it is it's practicing for life. So there are so many unanswered questions. Life raises such difficult challenges, and we will all face those challenges. The people who are innocent of those challenges, either people have already faced them or they're going to face them. And there are so many terrible cases of disease that you probably know many of. And the only answer is to live better. And what does that mean? So in the synagogue or church or mosque, perhaps you praise God, and outside of the house of worship, you do what. So for me, praising God is anything that brings life into the world, medicine, knowledge, celebrating good things. So those are all ways of dancing. Those are ways of praising God in the real life. For example, when you create something, when you create a business, when you create art. And so we are the only answer to disease and death is to realize that you now are alive and find a way to win points against God, if you like, by doing the things that you truly enjoy doing that bring a smile onto your face, onto other people's faces, And so in that way, what I'm not spiritual about, don't put me in a dark room meditating, For me, that's, I'm not interested. I did a Vipassana meditation course. I left after 3 days for, I think, I was a snorer and I'm a big male, and I was in a room without any wallpaper or curtains or anything, in bunk beds with other people who were also snoring. I didn't get any sleep. And after 3 days, I was like, this is not for me, at least not right now, and I left. But I did learn a lot at that meditation retreat. But for me, I'd rather walk. I'd rather climb a mountain. I'd rather stroll by the lakeside, whatever it is, do something that for me. And I think that what people have said to me is like, that is meditation. It's just a walking meditation, if you like.
Mm,
But
mm,
but what I've said, I said it somewhere, is that uh, um, so flight, fright, or freeze. You know all about. Well, it would be so. So I know that because you're a trainer in these things.
mm,
Um, what you don't want to do in any meeting, discussion, forum setting is make somebody defensive. Because the minute people get defensive, you've lost the plot. You're not going to get anything good out of them, if you like. And the problem with meditation is that you're
mm,
passive, and so it's very much like freeze. You
mm,
know, freeze and not be attacked. And
mm,
so for me, when I go out and I do something,
mm.
that is good. I find it very, every time I'm in the office, I don't feel worse when I've come home. So it's good. Chantel tries to get me into the office as much as possible, basically.
Yeah.
So,
It
yeah,
feels good to go to the office
most of the time.
most.
Um, I don't, I'm so, uh, in my case, what happens to me is that, so I have a brain injury, if you like. Forget the cancer. I have a brain injury. I've had three craniotomies. I've had three operations to take parts of my brain out that were diseased. Effectively, they had virus. They had cancer in them. But I have a brain injury, and so luckily for me, they were able to the cancer was in a location where they could take it out.
Mm,
And I have some neurological deficits, but it's all right. I can live with them. But my brain is now trying to rewire and make up. So there's something called
is it
neurological.
neuroplasticity?
That's the positive thing.
Yeah.
But my limit when it comes to doing sport, for example, or anything, is that neurological load. So my brain is like a baby's in many ways. Like, the baby can take a certain amount of effort
Mm,
and then it has to fall asleep. It has to shut down. And so I am limited in the amount of effort that I can put into every day, the amount of concentration that I can have, because like a baby, the wheels fall off the bus. So I celebrated my son's 20th birthday in a restaurant last night with my wife, and it was a loud restaurant.
mm,
And at some point, and Laurie's learned to recognize the signals because the dessert hadn't come, and she just says, "You need to go home. You can't take the noise anymore." And what used to happen when we're 20 is, we can pull an all-nighter. And
yeah.
it's like you don't feel great the next day, but you get through it, and then maybe you have an early night. I now have, my fear is that I will have a focal seizure, an epilepsy, and you don't want that to happen. You definitely don't want that to happen. So I used to push myself. It's nice to push yourself, stay late in the office, um, do that extra phone call, read that extra annual report, whatever it is.
Mm,
Now my fear is if I do that, in a way, I still want to push myself, but I'm so afraid of what will happen if I push myself. So, so that's why I sleep 12 hours a night. This morning I woke up at, so I went to bed at 10 and I had a meeting at the office at 11. And at 10:30, I was woken up and said, "Look, you have to come to the meeting in the office." But I slept more than 12 hours last night. And if you're interested, we
mm.
were supposed to do this podcast yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
So what happened? The On Sunday, we were going to do it on Monday.
Mm.
On Sunday, is that right? Do I have that right?
We
Tuesday?
were
No,
supposed to do it
no.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Monday was Memorial Day. Here it was some kind of holiday.
Yeah.
Wanted to go for a cycle ride, but I didn't feel right. I had a headache. Monday, I went for the bike ride. And in a strange way afterwards, I started feeling better and better as the day went on.
Mm.
So then uh, I wrote a letter to my son for his birthday, and that took far more time than I expected it to. I finished it at 12, and
Mm,
then me stupid thought, oh, I should just get into this unanswered email to this guy who's got some new technology to help me with my glioblastoma, and my analyst hasn't done it, so I'm going to see if I can do a good job. And I'm writing the I'm analyzing the company and writing a letter using my four new analysts. My four new analysts are Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity, and
yeah.
I love it. I say I post the request into four. I have a council of four analysts, and I post my requests into four of them, and I see what they all come back with, and I'm having fun having a conversation with them. So I'm
Yeah.
doing also. I wrote the letter to my son this way, and then I'm doing the analysis on this company, and then I go to bed at around 3 o'clock. Not so good,
Mm,
and I was unable to get to sleep. So I have this strange thing that even though I'm tired, so my brain is kind of like my brain. I have to learn to use my brain again. And
mm,
so what happened? So then I basically pulled an all-nighter, which is not a smart move at all.
yeah.
And so then I went to sleep at like 6 or 7 in the morning, and then um, at 2:30, Chantal calls up and she says, "You have a podcast at 3." And I'm like, I can't do this,
Yeah.
which I'm
Good.
very sorry about. But here I am
No, I'm
today.
so glad. Guy, there's a message here. And, too often the A-type personalities that we hang out with just press the pedal to the metal, go, go, go. Don't let themselves off the hook. Don't give themselves an excuse. And listen, I think you're taking care of yourself is the most important thing. And maybe that's a lesson for the rest of us.
Um, you know, it is possible to take care of yourself
Mm,
without letting somebody else down. And if you need to let somebody else down, it's better to let them know with a few 2 or 3 days ahead of time. Look, I'm sorry, I can't make it this day. Can we reschedule? And so that's my preferred modus operandi. And I yeah, I mean, so yeah, I have to go a lot slower, which I don't like at all.
mm,
And in a way, what's happened to me is that I'm being forced to age very, very quickly, if you like.
yeah.
2 summers ago, I was loving. You can go rowing on Lake Zurich, and I used to row at university, and I really love it. It's so beautiful,
Mm,
and I would like to get back to it, but I'm nowhere close, if you like. And probably but it's happened very, very quickly. So, maybe if I wouldn't have had the diagnosis that I would have had, I would have rowed less each season
mm.
until you realize I'm not rowing anymore, but it would have happened gradually. And what's happening to me is like I'm being forced to age far faster than I would like,
Yeah,
if you like. So,
yeah,
um,
you are. And gosh, Guy, I'm a paddle boarder, stand-up paddle, and
that's it.
maybe one day we can get on Lake Zurich together, and you'll do your
I would
thing,
love
I'll
to
do
do
mine.
that.
Yeah,
No, paddleboarding sounds great.
yeah,
I don't know. I've done it once in my life, but you know, that's something else. I mean, I'm not I love the sun. I love
yeah,
being out in the sun. But now bright lights. So
yeah.
bright sounds and bright lights. So
True.
so going out in the sun, I need to wear heavy glasses. And I think that that's true of anyone who grows older, basically.
Yeah,
All of the extremes you don't like anymore. And
yeah,
I'm the guy who used to be body surfing all summer in the waves.
yeah.
And, those people who are doing it today, they don't realize, or maybe they do realize that there's nothing better than in life than to do that. That's
That's one of my
celebrating
favorite
life.
pastimes as well, body surfing. I have
Yeah.
injuries to speak for it.
Sorry
So
that you have injuries.
Yeah, it was a coral reef where the
Oh,
waves
I'm
were
so
big,
sorry.
and
Yeah,
unfortunately I had to navigate the reef as I was
uh,
coming in.
I'm
But I'm
so
okay.
sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
okay.
good.
Minor
Yeah,
injuries. So
yeah,
Guy, I'm intrigued by the letter that you wrote to your son. And I want to just preface the question here with just to let our audience know who Guy is in one respect. So, we met some 20 years ago, and I cannot count the number of incredible things you've sent me in the mail over those 20 years. Whether it's the Aquamarine annual report, whether it's a holiday greeting, and I was always struck just by you're performing at another level, man. That's all I could say. I mean, I've met thousands of people, and the level at which you really have taken care of the people that you want to stay in touch with, and to stay in touch with them has just always really, really impressed me. I was impressed when I met you, and then I was continually impressed
yeah,
as I kept hearing from you and watching your business grow, and just having that connection with you. And so the letter, for me, is quite profound because, early on, in fact, just before 9/11, there was a forum that asked me to do their retreat, and they asked me to do something I had never done before. So 9/11 is happening, and, the quiet little street in front of our house here in Old Town Alexandria was jammed up. Nobody was going anywhere. We heard explosions that were rumored to be bombs around town. Obviously, we saw the towers come down. But as all that was happening, what I was thinking about is my mortality. It was the first time I was squarely really thinking about it for, some duration of
yeah,
time. And I came up with this exercise for this group, exploring your mortality. And one of the things that's part of that exercise is a letter in case
yeah.
you don't make it home. And on at least two occasions, I got an email a week or three or whatever afterwards, telling me that somebody, in fact, had died, and that letter was found, and it was significant to
Wow.
the person who's receiving it, who was the son in one case, who was barely 2 years old, and the moderator said, "Hey, this is power for the living. It's the only thing this kid's going to have from his father when he grows up."
Yeah,
In another case, it was an EO member that you might even know, and his daughter got that letter, and so really powerful. So I just wonder, have you always written letters to your children on their birthdays, or is this a first because of the circumstances?
so so Laurie is much better at the things that really count than I am. And before I go there, which is and I have a lot to say about it, and it's a beautiful place to go, is that one of the things that happens when, so, my letter writing and my staying in touch with people is both part of my personality, and there was something instrumental about it as well, in that it was a very good way to keep in touch with a lot of people, keep me in mind of a lot of people, and then good things would flow to me. And many, many things have flown into my life because I've kept in touch with so many people. But I didn't think of doing it so much with my family because my family were there, They were just, I didn't have to do it with my family. I mean, you take them for granted, there they are.
Hmm.
I, but this may be the best piece of wisdom that I do to give to the audience is that all of those other people, including you, Mo, don't count relative to the family. So the family are what remains through everything, and the connection goes beyond this life in a way that friends and associates and people that we've met professionally will never equal. And so if I was to have the last 20 years again, and I think I would focus much more of my attention to my family than to all of the other professional and other kind of relationships that I've had. And that's not to say that I would not do any professional relationships. And it's not to say that I have done many wonderful things with my children, taking them on specific trips, each one on their own, all of those kinds of things. But I would say that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, so before my wife did it, so she would always write a card. But this is the first time that I wrote a letter. And why did I write a letter? First of all, card is easy, or is easier than writing a letter. But what I did this time, and it's really changed the way I write, and I urge everybody else to try it. So every time I think of my relationship with my son, I record voice notes into the phone. And it's so easy now to turn the voice notes into text. Then I copy the text, and I have my 4 research assistants that I've already talked about.
Yeah.
And I put them in.
Yes.
And I say, clean this up. What do you think? And I'm much better verbally than I am in writing anyway. And so many things come out for me in writing. And then I read that and I go, and then I redictate it 2 or 3 times. And I get something that's very honed and what I want to say. And so I used this for the first time with my son. And that's where it started from. And my daughter, whose birthday was 3 months ago, I only wrote her a card, and she's there as I'm reading the letter to my son. And she says, well, you didn't write that for me. I said, yeah, because I didn't have 4 research assistants. And now she's graduating, so I'll be writing something for her as well. But I didn't think of it in terms of if you never see me again, if you like.
Yeah.
But what I did do is, I structured the letter as, here are some moments that we've spent together that I will carry with me forever, which I treasure. And then, I used those moments to talk about things that I saw in him, which are very, very special. And then actually, I gave him a blessing. And I don't know where I saw this. It's recently that, when many people sneeze in Mexico, you say bless you. Yeah. And it's kind of a call and answer. But I need to find this source. A real blessing is to tell the person something about them that they maybe don't know about themselves because they're not aware of it. And you say, you are very special because you have these amazing qualities. And to make them connect with those qualities in a way that makes them see themselves in a different light, in a better light of what they're capable of. So I kind of have just started to discover this way of being in the world, and this idea that especially to my children, the most beautiful thing I can do is give that blessing, if you like. And so I ended with that. But it's a genre that I'm going to get better at, and I'm on my way to getting better at it, if you like. So, but you've just inspired me with that. So I need to think about that some more. I know another guy, we know his wife well, who also unfortunately died of glioblastoma. And his wife said that she was very sorry that he didn't write that kind of letter for his children. And what I have to say is that I think part of it is you need to be practiced at it. You probably get better at it over time. But also, I know this, that if you feel like it's imminent, if your death is imminent, is there's a way of so that you don't want to increase the chances or increase the probability. And in some way, writing as if you're already going to die is
Yes.
going to bring it closer.
Yes.
And so, in a way, it says that you should do this when there's no chance of you dying, because
Yes.
then you'll be willing to do it. Whereas when you think that you're already on your deathbed in that direction, then it's a lot more difficult to write because it really will perhaps be the last one, if you like.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps. So why write it
Yeah.
from that? I love it. I love it. I love it. So how did your son react to this letter?
So he turned 20.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there because I'm not very good with dates and passports and ages. That's what my father, their mother, my wife does much better. So I got his age wrong. So I'm like looking, and it's like by the time I finish this thing, it's 12 o'clock, and my brain's not working particularly well. And I checked his passport. I'm like, is he turning 19 or 20? So he's actually turning 20, but I've written in the letter 19. And I put him on the spot because he was reading it in front of my Laurie and my younger daughter. My older daughter is studying, so she wasn't around. I mean, so all our eyes, the family's eyes were on him, and so I don't think he could react naturally, if you like.
Yeah.
But he gave me a hug and I gave him a hug, and you know what, I've said in the past that writing a letter or a note, especially if it's handwritten, and this was not handwritten because I didn't have time. I would have spent another 2 hours writing the handwritten one. You can reread it. So I have no doubt that he will reread that. Yeah. And yes, I have to write similar things to my other two children, if you like. And I hope it's not my last letter to them, but there's something about writing there's something that writing a letter that is very, very special. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Guy, I'm just so grateful for this time, and we have so much more to uncover. And so I'm glad we've made this a multi-part series. Your energy and your wisdom are contagious. And,
thank you.
Yes, you're just what an amazing human being. I'm just so grateful for this time with you.
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say that. What I can say back to you is, so like there's this back at you thing. Americans say that. Yeah. But you've provided the space for me to do that, which is beautiful. You've created the space to listen. You've been listening throughout this, and you've been healing me by doing it. So by allowing me to talk about it in this way to you, without judgment, with an open spirit, is been healing for me. And that space has been beautiful. And for those who are not tuned in to Mo, that comes through years of intent of wanting to create that space. And you've become so good at it. And I really appreciate, I mean, in a way, I'm coming onto your show and I got more benefit than you did, if you like. So I'm so grateful. This is like, if anybody is, I believe everybody should have a psychotherapist, at least one, if not multiple. But this has been like a therapy session for me. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
I can't wait. Thank you so much, Guy.
Yeah, thank you.